A little bit of a chat there.
Guess the voice. Mystery voice competition.
It's not known for keeping quiet. It's Gary Neville. Morning, Gary.
Morning. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
Ill discipline.
Well, you've had a front row seat in football, haven't you, for more than 30 years, it says here on my script, which feels like a long time. You must be a grown-up by now.
I love football, though. It's a fantastic... I enjoyed the game last night. It was very good. Did you watch it?
Yes. Did you enjoy the first half?
Not really, but when you play against Germany at home, it's going to be a struggle. I can't believe it opened up like it did in the second half, but it was welcome, and I thought that the lads did really well. I was pleased for Gareth. Obviously, he's had a lot of criticism in the last few weeks, and I think unnecessarily.
Unnecessarily?
Yeah, I believe.
Something shifted, hasn't it? What is it? Go on.
We get tired and bored, don't we? I mean, he's done an unbelievable job with England. It's absolutely incredible what he's achieved, and the fact that he's under pressure going into a World Cup, I think, is just an absolute nonsense. I've been to 8 tournaments as a player and a coach, disappointed the fans that are probably watching this many times by getting knocked out in quarters and semi-finals and not making it through group games. This group of players and this manager have got to semi-finals and finals, and they're punching well above their weight and they're doing really well, and we should, back them going into the World Cup in Qatar in a few weeks' time.
Should back them, but how confident are you actually feeling?
I am confident because, to be fair, they've always delivered for us in tournaments. I'm not saying they've won a tournament yet, but to get to where they've got to, they've given us brilliant times. And it was a disappointment, obviously, to get to the final against Italy and then lose it. But I have to say that when you think of where my career was and the fact that we disappointed and didn't even get to any finals, I've got to say that they've done a brilliant job, and I think that we should be proud of them. I know that the Lionesses went one step further in the summer and we're absolutely amazed, and we'd love that we'd do that in the World Cup, but it'll be tough, very tough, but I've still got faith in them.
How much does a blip like this actually perhaps help?
You're going to have them. You can't be manager England for a 4 or 5 year period and not think you're going to go through a difficult time. I also think these Nation League games... Look, I was an England coach and I was England manager, and I used to say these games are really important in preparation. These games are really important because there's a lot of fans there. That is the most important thing. 90,000 people turned up at Wembley paying good money. But those Nation League games in the summer, they're a little bit boring to watch. I don't think anybody was stimulated by the tournament or is stimulated by the tournament. So last night was a good ending to it, and I think that, for me, I'm glad it's over and the real stuff starts.
And it's only a few weeks away, isn't it, the World Cup? How are you feeling about that as an event? I know you've been critical in the past about the location and the way it's all happening and the preparations. Are you more optimistic now?
I'm optimistic. I always be optimistic about football because I think that, one, it brings us a lot of joy. I haven't been critical of the location in the sense of the Middle East. If you fundamentally believe that every region in the world should have a World Cup, then the Middle East should have a World Cup. A Muslim country should have a World Cup. And if we're going to have a World Cup in a Middle Eastern country, then we have to choose one of them. So from that point of view, we have to get our heads around that every 24 years there is going to be a World Cup in the winter, our winter, because you can't play there in their summer, it's 45 degrees. So I'm actually really comfortable with that. We know they have issues with workers' rights, treatment of women, LGBTQ and gay rights. We know that. But what do we do? Not play football there because it's a region-wide problem, it's not just Qatar? Or do we try and somehow impart change through football? And I'm on that side of the fence and always have been.
You've been there, haven't you? You've been to Qatar.
I've been to Qatar, been to Dubai for 20 years, been going to the Middle East, enjoy the Middle East, as many people do. Many people have been there on holiday. I don't know if you've been yourselves. And from that point of view, there are things over there that we don't like, that we don't do. But we do a lot of bad things in this country as well. We're not great at the top at this moment in time ourselves.
Beckham's had a lot of criticism from some quarters for supporting it, being an ambassador for the World Cup. When you have quiet chats with him, are you sympathetic to him having that role? Are you happy with it?
It's not a case of being sympathetic to him. It's a case of understanding what's your position. Do you believe that countries that have poor human rights or poorer human rights than we do and workers' rights, do you believe that we should never engage with them, collaborate with them, go to those countries and play sport with them? Or do you believe we should try and go there, play sport and try and influence change? And I would say that, to be fair, from my point of view, I know David would be exactly the same, that's what we would try and do. We try and make sure that you speak to people, you influence them, you allow sport to influence them. We're talking about players potentially over there wearing rainbow armbands and things like that, and it will highlight issues that exist, just like when people highlight issues that exist in our country and the region that we live in.
And do you have any sympathy when you hear a Manchester United great like Eric Cantona saying that it's a mistake to become an ambassador for a country like Qatar, for a World Cup being held there?
Well, look, that's Eric's view. Eric said yesterday that he didn't think that Manchester United's ground, Old Trafford, should ever be called anything else other than Old Trafford. I would disagree with that if it meant that it would remove the ownership and we could have new owners in who could sell the ground and make that part of the plan to bring a better team and a better project to Manchester United. So everyone has their own view. The great thing about society is we can have opposing views, but still, to be fair, get on with each other and tolerate those views.
Your new book is your view of the state of football, basically, isn't it? And you've seen it from the inside, from the outside. What is the state of football at the moment? Where do you think we are?
I think on the face of it, it looks very shiny and rosy. The Premier League is absolutely outstanding. It's one of the best leagues that you'll ever see at this moment in time. It's brilliant to watch, but we do struggle. We lack independence, we lack fairness. A little bit like society, it's a mirror of society. There should be a fair distribution model, there should be more sustainability, there should be real-time financial monitoring, there should be better fit and proper owners tests, there should be a fully invested women's game. We should address societal issues like racism and the LGBTQ issues that exist in football and, again, invest in and fund them properly. All these things can be done, but football has proven over a 20, 30-year period that it can't come to those conclusions and those outcomes itself. And that's why, you know, for me to want government intervention into football, when you know what I think of this government, I think you would say that pretty much is a last resort. But actually, there is consensus on this. This is not a political issue. There should be a regulator. Tracy Crouch, a Conservative MP, has done a brilliant report, an absolutely outstanding report. That the recommendations, they were mentioned, it referred to in the Queen's speech, and they just need executing now. I know there were rumours last week that emanated that maybe the regulator would be banned and canned. I'm hopeful that's not true, because that'd be extremely disappointing. It has got widespread political support and overwhelming support within the game, apart from a few Premier League clubs.
But a regulator would need really wide-ranging power.
Oh, it'll need teeth, absolutely. But then we shouldn't worry about that. You know, why should you worry about regulation? Our banking industry, media industry, energy industries all operate within sort of what with boundaries and lanes from a regulator. Those companies that work within those industries still make money and are profitable, as we know. And it'll be the same in football. We can still have an excellent Premier League and have better regulation, independence, and also make sure that we look after the rest of the pyramid.
Well, we've got a new Prime Minister whose message seems to be change and deregulation and cutting rules and red tape, and maybe isn't so keen on the idea of a football regulator. Are you hearing rumours that maybe that's this plan is now on the back burner?
There were rumours emanated last week in the Times. Martin Ziegler broke that piece that there was someone close to Liz Truss that doesn't want a regulator in football. But what I would say is that football is very different than the rest of this country. Football clubs are community assets. They're important to the fabric of our society. We saw what football did during the pandemic, when people sort of enjoyed football. It helped their mental health coming out of a pandemic. And we've got derbies, we've got Berries and Wigans, clubs like this that have gone into desperate trouble. We need something to happen. We don't want other Super Leagues. We don't want clubs running off with the crown jewels. All these things would be prevented with a regulator with teeth. And I think it needs to happen. And I hope Liz Truss sees this as an easy win, because actually it's got political support across each of the parties. I know that she's trying to stamp a mark on things, but maybe she just needs to settle down a little bit, not make too many bold decisions too quickly, because, you know, what she's done in the first week, to be fair, she hasn't covered herself in glory with the Chancellor.
Now, Gary, you're sitting here chatting to us about football, quite a lot about politics. Is that where you're headed?
It's definitely not where I'm headed.
Are you sure?
I'm absolutely positive. I love my life in Greater Manchester too much, in the businesses. I love the football work that I do too much. I feel politically motivated to speak out at this moment in time, because really I don't want someone living in number 10 and 11 Downing Street, when people are worried about paying their energy bills and worried about how they're going to get through a winter, thinking about bankers' bonuses and thinking that they should increase. I don't think it's right. I think it's immoral. And I believe that over the last couple of years we've seen what would be real low standards in government. And I would expect those things to change quite quickly with the change. It's a tired, failing government, this one. They've had the time, they're divided, they beat each other up in the leadership contest a few weeks ago. I know you have to be impartial on this show, but you two must be even looking at them thinking, what the hell's going on?
You're sounding like a politician, though. You
sound like a politician.
No, do you know what you sound like? Do you know what you sound like to me, Garrett? You sound like a future mayor of Manchester.
No, I won't be the mayor of Manchester either.
Categorically? Right, OK, let's record this, everyone.
Well, I can't say anything categorically, but honestly...
now you really sound like a politician.
I would have to give up the things that I love doing all the time, with the hotels, the development company, the university, the football club. I'd have to give up, obviously, my work with Sky on the Premier League. And I don't want to give up those things. I love those things too much. And I'd rather just be a loose cannon on the outside, having a few sort of what would be, if you like, goals at what I think is wrong. There's no one in this country at this moment in time, whether you're one of the 658,000 people on over £150,000 a year, or whether you're in the category of on 20,000 plus a year, that thinks that bankers' bonuses or high net worth should get a tax break at this moment in time. It's wrong, and we need to deal with those things. I know you want to cut in on me because, to be fair, you have to, you know. Because your producers.
No, not at all. I mean, obviously we have to look at both sides, but you know, it's a matter of you were there at the Labour Party conference.
Yeah.
You joined Labour. You were introducing Keir Starmer yesterday on the stage. You've got some pictures. I mean, you're not really on the sidelines, are you? When you're up there with a potential, possible future Prime Minister, you are in the thick of politics.
It's no longer good enough to stay silent when you've got a position and a platform. It's no longer good enough. We've stayed silent for so long on many issues. And, you know, I supported Keir yesterday. When people say, can Keir Starmer be the next Prime Minister, he's had a serious job at the CPS, being Director of Public Prosecutions, a really serious role, and he's proven that he can handle that. He's someone that you can trust, and he's someone that I think, to be fair, would be a very, very good Prime Minister and a great alternative to what we're seeing at this moment in time, which is people in government who none of us can relate to. None of us can relate to these people. They give, you know, Rishi Sunak before them, give you a 200 quid loan, then wants paying back 40 quid a year. Who's worth 400 million quid like Rishi Sunak? Gives you a £200 loan for your energy bills and then wants paying back over 5 years at 40 quid a year, 80 pence a week. Who does that? You don't do that if you're in a position like that. If you're statesman-like and you're thinking about people properly and you're compassionate, you don't do those things. Yeah. These people have vested interests, and they are full of greed.
They are an elected government in power, and these are clearly your very strongly held personal beliefs.
They are my strongly held personal beliefs. I'm hoping that the 2019 election was a perfect storm for the Conservatives in the sense of Brexit and the immigration issues and all the other things that came to the fore within that election. I believe it's a far different choice now. 12 years on, the time has come. They are failing. They are tired. They don't even like each other. You know, the MPs...
Sounds like a football team.
No, but I've been part of football teams. I was a manager of Valencia, where you have a dressing room that's quite difficult. I've been part of football teams that have been very successful, where you're all aligned. And I've been part of football teams that aren't successful, where you have cliques, where you have sort of what would be divides. And that's what we've got in the Conservative Party at this moment in time. They are divided, they're not together, which means they shouldn't be running our country.
You know, there are some people in Labour, some people at that conference in Liverpool, probably the audience with you yesterday watching Keir Starmer, who don't think Keir Starmer is relatable and don't think the Labour Party is connected enough.
No, but I think it's got to a point now whereby I think that I was at that Labour Party conference yesterday, and I think they see the greater goal, that unity is really important this next 18 months. And whether you've got policy differences with Keir Starmer, whether you think he's the right leader or not, you must get behind Keir Starmer. I think that's ultimately what the feeling was in the conference that I went to yesterday, because he is trustworthy. He has taken on serious roles in the past. He's proven that he's capable of handling major positions of leadership. And he's someone who I think you can look at and think, I'd rather him be dealing with the rest of the world and building our relationships back, because this current government have burned their bridges so much, not just in this country, but with Europe and the rest of the world, which means they're not the right people to rebuild those relationships.
Gary, I have to ask you a really serious question now. What's your view on Eurovision? I'm joking.
Eurovision?
No,
I don't watch Eurovision. Well, we didn't win, did we? Ukraine won, didn't they?
Well, they did. Yeah. But I'm going to take you to your favourite city now. You ready? Stay with us, because you're going to love this next piece.
We're in Liverpool again.
Yes. We are. Gary Neville, thank you. Gary Neville's book is out now.
Ukraine may have won, but we came second because Ukraine can't host it next year. We've got 7 cities across the UK who are running to host next year's Eurovision Song Contest. And here on Breakfast, we